In this video, we're going to look at natural monopolies. If we recall, there is a spectrum of different options for allocating scarce resources. At one end, there can be government provision for things like national defense and other public goods. At the other end, we can allocate goods and services to consumers using prices in a market-based system. Now, characteristics of a market include multiple buyers and sellers. Firms will compete for their business. They will innovate, they will compete, they will try and offer value to the customer by things like lower prices or higher quality. Now, another type of market organization is a monopoly. Now, in a monopoly, there is only one single provider of a good or service. There are typically barriers to entry that prevent other firms from entering the market, and there is an absence of competition, or at the very least, there are few substitutes. The effects of a monopoly, this results in higher prices for consumers, probably lower output, lower products, fewer products available, and inferior products. Why is there inferior products? Well, with no competition, there is little incentive for firms to innovate. They don't need to try and create new things that the consumer wants because they're the only business in town. Is this ever a good thing? Are there any situations where a monopoly might be preferable? Perhaps. Consider this example. What would competition look like for passenger rail travel? Imagine a system of rail networks, different companies putting their own train tracks down, offering their own train schedules. There would be a lot of wasteful duplication, and it might be pretty difficult to get around the city across this overlapping network of railroad tracks. Or consider hydroelectric power. Imagine different generating stations, different networks of power lines crisscrossing a city. Again, there would be some redundancy and it would be wasteful. Competition would be difficult because of all that extra production, of all that waste. In this situation, it might be better to just have one single provider of that good or service. And that's what's called a natural monopoly. A natural monopoly is an industry where multi-firm competition would be more costly, more wasteful than production by a monopoly. The key here is that it would avoid that wasteful duplication as firms try and create more infrastructure. The thinking is it would be better with just one set of train tracks or one set of power lines. Having one firm would be more efficient. A couple of examples: via rail, for example, for passenger train travel. Local power authorities. Within Canada, in multiple jurisdictions, there is typically a sole electricity provider locally, because having more firms would bring a lot of excess duplication. So, to summarize, monopolies are generally bad for consumers. They limit choice, they result in higher prices, and there's barriers to entry that prevent competition and firms from innovating. However, in some industries, it might be better to have one provider than many providers. They could typically do it more efficient. Typical example would be power generation.